Blessings, beloveds. Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer. Let's talk about the first new moon for 2021 occurring today, as a matter of fact. So I'm a little bit late in doing this recording, and I wasn't even... Yeah, anyway, it's just crazy. A few days. Time just has gone. I don't know where it's gone. I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation that Philip, Daniel, Miles, and myself went through yesterday with regards to the asteroid goddesses. Let me know whether you watched it and whether it was useful information for you. I'm sure it would have been for quite a few of you that don't have much experience with the goddesses. Anyway, let's get straight into this chart because I really just have absolute minimal time. Let me just move some things around. Okay, so this is the new moon chart. As always, don't worry about where everything is placed. This is based on my own location. Where your location is going to determine the situation of where everything is in the chart. That's pretty much the case all the time, but I like to mention it because there may be some of you that are not aware of that. Okay, so here we go. New moon in Capricorn. Now, this time last year, which, was really one of the biggest years of our time, really, wasn't it? 2020. Of course, things haven't really cleared up yet, have they? So we can see that, whether we like it or not, it's just a fact. Anyway, this time last year, Pluto and Saturn, we're in their conjunction in late degrees of Capricorn. And so, fast forward a year later and Saturn's ingressed into Aquarius, and there it is there. You can see it still within orb to a conjunction to Jupiter. But I guess I don't really want to unpack anything else for today because I just, unfortunately, I just don't have the time. So I'm just going to make some very general kind of comments, I suppose, about the new moon. The first thing that is clearly the most powerful point about this new moon is it's a new moon. How did I just do that? That's cool. I didn't want to do that, but I'm happy with that. It's a new moon. As we know, we have a new moon every month. Sometimes it's a solar eclipse. This is not a solar eclipse. This is a new moon. It is conjunct Pluto, meaning right next to Pluto. You can see Pluto is just there. Let me get my little helpers. Just bear with me while I move something out the way. Okay, so here is the new moon with Pluto. So the new moon is at 23 degrees and 13 minutes of Capricorn, and Pluto is 24 degrees and 35 minutes of Capricorn. So an incredibly close conjunction. We can all see that. The new moon, of course, is always new beginnings, and what better time than the beginning of the year, let's say, right, relative to the calendar that we work with anyway. So a new moon, of course, is always the opportunity to set some intentions, to plant some seeds, to prepare, perhaps you could say for the next month. You could just take this in the context of how this lunation cycle can unfold for you. And so here it is beginning in the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn is a very mature sign. It's a very developed sign. It's a sign that corresponds to the conscious structure of our reality as well. And the reality, as it were, that we see before us, Capricorn, is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is the planet that corresponds to this everyday experience of reality that we have a relationship with or perceive. I like to think of Capricorn from a more place of more consciousness and awareness, when it's working at its best, Capricorn has tremendous wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom in the sign of Capricorn, especially when you're looking at it from the esoteric level. The esoteric Capricorn is the goat, on the mountain, that because Capricorn is very much associated to accomplishment and achievement and status, it's very goal orientated. It's very, very driven, the nature of Capricorn. So esoterically, though, the esoteric Capricorn soul or person or vibration is the goat that reaches the top of the mountain and turns around and sees his human family, humanity, and doesn't race up to the top to get there on his own. He sort of turns back to assist the rest of humanity, as it were, to help them get up on that mountain right up to the top. I mean, it's a metaphor, and it's symbols, but it's very, very powerful, because a Capricorn that's operating from a more transcendent level, let's say, who has tremendous wisdom, is interested in helping humanity, reach to this top. Now, reaching to the top it can be, that can manifest in lots of different ways. That can be helping people in a physical way. That can be helping people spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. It's really the mentor, the wise old teacher, the wise old man who has so much wisdom to share with his fellow humans, as it were, to help them in their journey of wisdom and growth and understanding, right? So the highest level of Capricorn is that. Martin Luther King is the first person that comes to mind who was a Capricorn, who had that very famous speech, which I'm not going to repeat right now. Most of you would be aware of that. So he was a classic archetype of the most highest manifested level of Capricorn, in that way of having genuine and authentic care for people, for humanity, for their safety, for fairness, justice, and equality, and so forth, right? Caring about the human race, basically. So this energy, the reason I'm sort of unpacking that a bit is because I think and I don't want to go into this too much because there's so many levels and I just don't have the time, but very, very quickly, we can look at this new moon in terms of the collective stage, if you like, and all the things that are unfolding, particularly, in the USA with the elections and the new president that's going to be sworn in a few days' time, and the chaos and drama that's been going on around that. You all know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go into that. But what I'd like to say is that this new moon holds tremendous potential for wisdom if we are to step into it from that place of wisdom and awareness. And if we step into it from the consensus sort of reality and the structure of the reality before us, then what we're really seeing here is we're seeing a process of incredibly deep and profound transformation that's going to start at this time, okay, because of Pluto's presence. Pluto is always about transformation, however big or small that may be. But it's always about transformation. It's also about death and rebirth, as we know. It's also about what is hidden and what often will be exposed or revealed, right? It's about bringing things reappearing from the past, as it were, that have been hidden. So from a collective level, there is something here going on that begins with this new moon relative to the Capricorn Saturnian level of reality, which is governments, politicians, etc., there's something that is really going to be dismantled and completely transformed. And obviously that's not going to happen overnight, but this new moon, I feel, is speaking to that. It's speaking to something very powerful being dismantled and being transformed, as it were. And I really do believe that that is going to connect to politics and government bodies and so forth, and the general sort of structure of our reality. Okay, this is just one level of it. Of course, there are all these other greater and longer cycles that speak to the more expansive view of this picture moving forward. But just in relation to a lunation cycle, new moon, the first new moon for the year, we're talking about a very powerful presence of Pluto with the new moon. And so, as I said, Capricorn, at a more elevated level has tremendous wisdom. And of course, at the personality level, relative to the structure of reality through the consensus, Saturn, Capricorn, there needs to be some dismantling and deconstruction, because that's the nature of Pluto. So, and also, just further on, we can see here, as I said, Jupiter and Saturn are still very close together. So their energy is very much still within that conjunction phase. It's moving on. Jupiter is moving on, but it's still there within range. And we also have Mercury, who's recently ingressed into Aquarius. And Mercury, of course, has been conjunct Saturn, conjunct Jupiter, and now he's approaching his conjunction to Pallas Athena. So there's a lot of Aquarius energy here. And, these signs are really important in the current times of how reality appears before us. We do need the vibration and energy of the later signs of the zodiac, because they do correspond to either making things better or sort of, how can I say it? The later signs hold a greater level of awareness and consciousness and have the ability to see the bigger picture. So it's not just about what's happening to me in my own life, but rather it's about what's happening to the world, what's happening to the human race, what's happening to our experience of reality from the point of view of the deconstruction that's going on, right? The rebirthing that's going on, and the necessary adjustments and changes that we all need to accommodate or work with. It's not a one-man job. It's a human family collective job. We're all doing it together, and these signs really do speak to the larger picture, as to my life and the way my life is impacted, or your life and how your life is impacted at the moment, is not just about you and your life, or me and my life. It's about everything that's going on in the world at large. And these signs speak to these kinds of themes and issues, right? So, and Mercury in Aquarius is brilliant for objectivity, clarity, having really creative, genius type of ideas, new styles of thinking about things and understanding our life as we proceed forward now with these great changes that are still before us, and with the great uncertainty that's still before us. But Mercury, having been conjunct Saturn and Jupiter, and now Pallas Athena, there's a strong energy there with the Aquarian archetype, which corresponds to the human family. In evolutionary astrology, Aquarius also corresponds to the experience of trauma. And so, in part, there's trauma that's, part of certain people's reality at the moment, based on their personal circumstances. That could be due to health, that could be due to, loss of income, etc., etc. So there are many layers to this. But the hopeful side of all this Aquarian energy is the unity that it can bring relative to collective thought and ideas that can help the human family move forward into the next step of where they need to move to, relative to the changes that are going on. So from a personal perspective, however, this new moon with Pluto, for our own personal self, I guess, is very much about setting something into motion, if you like, that has a real serious tone to it. You know, it's something that's going to be very important and serious to you, because Capricorn is a very serious archetype. You know, it doesn't take things lightly, and what it works towards or chooses to invest in, it actually does take very seriously. And so part of this picture as well has got to do with the parent component of our life, as in our own parents, and or being our own parent to ourselves, you know, taking responsibility for our own life, our own actions, and the choices that we are making, and being able to bring through Pluto's energy to enable us to perhaps step into a profound commitment level of what we wish to transform in our own psyche, and how we wish to either deconstruct certain conditioned, you know, models in our own mind, in our thoughts, because Capricorn corresponds to the conditioned layer or layers within us relative to how we've grown up, where we've lived, what we've encountered, what's been fed into our mind. And so here we have an opportunity to do some deconstructing, and do some personal transformative work relative to the structure of our life and our reality, Capricorn, and the responsibility that we are prepared, you know, to put around that. Remember, when we take responsibility for our life, that's never to be underestimated as a lightweight thing. It's a very profound thing, because the moment you can take responsibility for your life, that's the moment that you pretty much start to empower yourself and start to project a lot less as well. You know, Capricorn is typically projected onto the consensus reality out there, and is, you know, experienced as these rules and regulations and norms and limitations and difficulties that we encounter based on you know, systems that are set up, confines that are imposed on us and so forth, which is still incredibly prominent in a lot of parts of the world, USA, UK, lots of other countries in Europe as well, and other places. So, you know, this thing that they call COVID-19, this thing they call pandemic, whether you believe it's real or not, that's not the point here. The point is, it happens to be what seems to be presented in reality at the moment, right? So we're not here to debate whether it's real or whether it's not. We're just here to accept and understand what is being presented and what is our role in that. How can we participate in what needs to happen moving forward, right? And that means taking responsibility for ourselves, you know, for our own life. And that's what this new moon is actually speaking to. It's speaking to perhaps looking at some of our own personal conditioned layers in terms of how we perceive our life, others, reality, and what we may be ready to just let go of, to die to, that no longer serves the model of life that we wish to see moving forward. Because we are, as I always say, we are always becoming, and evolution is it's constant, it doesn't stop. So transformation is a big aspect of our own personal evolutionary journey. And that's what this new moon conjunct Pluto says. It says, here's a chance to deconstruct some old conditioned models in your own psyche, etc., and feel a sense of empowerment in doing that. You know, purging, shedding old skin, old conditioned models, mindsets, and so forth, to prepare for the new paradigm, the new reality, the new future moving forward, because we are moving into a new future. As much as we may not want to accept that, or as much as we resist that, it doesn't matter, it's going to happen. So it is up to us how we respond to that, whether we react to that, and how we participate in life with all of that, all these changes, that is, right? So, I mean, look, you know, overall, I feel it can be a very positive new moon. But with Pluto, I must say that it is always the case that when you have a journey of transformation, when you engage in a journey of transformation, when something is ready to leave your life, which is Pluto, it's, you know, it's the experience of death, okay? And that means, you know, a psychological death, an emotional death. There could be anything. It could be a relationship, you know, could be anything really, leaving a particular location, going to another one. A death is a death. A death is an ending, basically. That's what it is. So with the nature of Pluto is such that we don't experience a new birthing until we actually are ready to allow something else to go. And sometimes it leaves, or it dies, or it goes. And quite often, not just sometimes, quite often, that process happens where we have no control over it, because that's the nature of Pluto. It's got to take something in order to enable you to have the rebirth experience and process. So that's kind of like the price you have to pay when you're dealing with Pluto. And it's a very similar thing here. We're talking about a new moon, which is a new beginning, yes. But what is it that we are ready to die to within ourselves? Is it a particular idea? Is it a particular belief, mindset, perception, you know, whatever it is? Something that's been heavily entrenched and conditioned into your perception of reality or your own life, for instance, and just taking responsibility to step into a new pathway, right? Because this is a new beginning. So that's it in a nutshell, to be honest with you. That's really, and actually, you know, from an esoteric level, as I was saying at the beginning, you know, Capricorn is the sign esoterically that is the wise old man, right? It's as I said, the goat up on the mountain that turns back and looks at humanity and has incredible compassion and wants to assist, okay? So there's a real wise spiritual component to this energy as well. If we so choose to work with this energy in this way, it still means we've got to go through some kind of death, some kind of letting go of something, because Pluto is there. But I really loved the Sabian symbol for this new moon, which I'll read to you guys now. And it's the Keynote. So I'm reading 24 degrees of Capricorn, because when we're looking at Sabian symbols, we always go to the subsequent degree. That's just the basic sort of law or rule. Okay, there are exceptions sometimes. But in this case, I'm using the 24th degree, and I'm reading out of Jane Rogers' Astrological Mandala. So the 24th degree, the keynote is a woman entering a convent. Total commitment to a transcendent goal. Now, see, those two words, transcendent, goal, in this context, for this Sabian symbol, those words are connecting to Capricorn, because Capricorn is connected to goals. You know, it's about climbing the ladder, as it were, right? But what it's saying here is that, you know, there's a level of commitment, which again is Capricorn, that we can invest ourselves into for a more transcended purpose or outcome. So it's not about the personality level of, you know, I want to build this, or I need to establish that, or I want more respect here, or I need to be more noticed because of the hard work that I've done. It's not about those needs and desires from a personal level. We're talking about a transcendent level of an outcome, let's say, relative to how much we commit on that path, right? So he says a convent is a place made available by a community which believes in the possibility of reaching world transcending state of consciousness. It is made available to individuals who may be variously motivated. To some, it is an escape from the intolerable pressures of family and society, which I think is a fair comment to connect with a lot of people on the planet at the moment, right? Just based on the state of reality and the conditions. To others, it represents the possibility of pursuing in peace a spiritual ideal to which the whole being aspires and is totally dedicated. The important point in this phase of the cyclic process is that the existence of a convent expresses another aspect of the relationship between the society, in brackets, its religion and culture, and the individual. He goes further to say, in the preceding symbol, society rewarded the individual for a noble performance in its service. Here, society accepts the fact that beyond its daily normal patterns of behavior and commitments, which is Capricorn, at an everyday level, another way of life exists, which in a higher sense also has social value. In the old Hindu society, dominated by a rigid caste system, the ideal embodied in the sannyasi, which is a Hindu word, I believe, the wandering holy man or yogi meditating in a forest or a cave, who had entirely given up all that caste implied, was seen to be the very culmination of the social process. So you kind of have to sit with that, all right, and digest those comments a bit. And there's quite a few deep layers to this particular Sabian symbol. However, very simply put, it's talking about very much what I've already spoken about relative to this new moon. When you look at it a little bit from the esoteric level, the higher manifestation of Capricorn, and when you also look at it from the mundane personality level, let's say, the goals are still there, okay? The goals are there for Capricorn, period. But once you're working with these goals for a more transcendent purpose, it becomes this experience of wanting things to be better or improved, not just for yourself and for your own accomplishments, but rather for the world at large. And so the vibration of the 24th degree, in other words, holds quite a transcendent frequency to it. And so if we want, we can work with the energy in that way. And it's a very selfless thing to do, actually, and that's when we connect in a selfless way, that within itself, I feel is actually a rewarding thing to do, because giving is a rewarding experience. Giving, well, in my opinion, giving feels great. When you give something to somebody, it doesn't matter what it is, but it can be a material object, or it can be your time, or your ears, or your heart, right? Or conversation, or whatever it is. When you're giving something to someone, it's giving is, well, it's it's ruled by Venus, because Venus rules giving and sharing and connecting and gifts and things like that, right? And so that the whole giving experience it's a Venusian Venus experience, and Venus is about what makes us feel happy and makes us feel good. You know, it's not a malefic planet, it's a benefic. So that the more we can give of ourselves without the ulterior motives behind that, and just give for the sake of giving in a selfless way, that's a tremendous reward for our own spiritual growth. And so the 24th degree of Capricorn is speaking to having these goals towards creating a better reality, let's say, and our contribution in that would be better served from a place of not just what I want for myself, but how can this contribute to humanity, to the collective, to the whole human race. It's a big thing. A lot of people are not going to take that approach. You know, I'm not unrealistic. I'm pretty aware of that. But I'm putting this out there because there are many people who would live from this level, who would take this approach, or who would at least consider it and do their best in their part. Okay, that's the bigger picture, and the smaller picture, kind of reeling it right back in. It's your own personal transformation that can begin as this new year begins with the first new moon, by taking responsibility for everything in your life in order to create greater self-empowerment, Pluto. So I'll leave it there. Okay, so I'm off because I have some matters to attend to. See you guys very, very soon. We have a full moon coming up, obviously, in a couple of weeks' time, as per usual. New moon, then 2 weeks later we have a full moon. I will spend more time on the nature of everything else in terms of the planetary aspects and so forth in that full moon video. Just didn't have time to do that today. Hopefully today's message reaches somebody, even if it just reaches one person, and it reaches you in your heart in a way that you know, it touches your heart, then I'm totally satisfied and content for that, and grateful as well. I don't have to reach 8 billion people. I don't mind if I do, and I don't mind if I don't. So thank you for listening, and sending you all much love and much blessings, and see you soon.